Well, Jesus is the good teacher. Not just the good teacher, he's the best teacher ever. Now, when I say he's the best teacher, I would hope that all of us probably in our minds can think back to like our favorite teacher that we had in school. Everybody think about your favorite teacher that you had in school. Now, there's usually a number of factors that surround our favorite teacher from when we were in school. My teacher that was my favorite was when I was in high school. He was our high school chemistry teacher. His name was Mr. Elliott, and he asked us to call him Mr. E, which was pretty cool, okay? So we had Mr. E, and you would think he was the cool teacher. He was not the cool teacher. Mr. E had a pocket protector that was like 7 pocket protectors into one with every color pen you can imagine and every kind of utensil in the pocket protector, big glasses, and Mr. E was just kind of dumpy looking and everything, but he was still our favorite teacher because Mr. E cared about his students. He got involved in our lives. Like he knew not only our names, but like what we were into. So I played football. So he was always asking me about the football team and what we were up to. And he would come to the pep rallies and he would reference things from the pep rallies. And he would talk to other kids about the clubs they were in, if they were in the band or they were in drama. He would attend all the things that we were doing. And he got involved in our lives. And because he got involved in our lives, we got interested in what he was teaching. Now, I will tell you right now, I was a pretty good student, but chemistry was my worst subject I ever took in school. It was the hardest thing for me. My brain doesn't work well with it. I'm more of a history, language arts, English, writing, creative type. And so chemistry for me was a real challenge. And where I usually made A's, chemistry was a struggle to maybe hopefully pull out a B, and humble brag. And so this was like my hard class, but yeah, he was my favorite teacher. And he loved what he taught, and he loved his students. And so because of that, we fell in love with our teacher. I think that's an interesting thing about a really good teacher, oftentimes is teaching something that can be really hard. But when he loves what he's teaching and he loves who he's teaching, then all of a sudden you find yourself loving the teacher. And so when I talk about Jesus as the good teacher, like the teacher, he is the teacher and the Lord. This was one of the ways he referred to himself. He said, yes, I am teacher. I am Lord. We're in this message series called Hi, My Name Is, where we're taking a look at how Jesus referred to himself. Our God is unchanging yet ever revealing, and our God loves to make himself known. He wants everybody to know him and everybody to be in a relationship with him. And so he's always making himself known. And so when Jesus came to earth, here's the Son of God, God becoming flesh. This is God speaking our language, saying, hey, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to show you who I am. I'm going to show you what love personified looks like. He said, I'm going to show you what my commands look like as they're being lived out. He is the teacher and he is the Lord. And so our memory verse for this series comes all the way back in the Old Testament in Exodus chapter 3, verse 14, where there was a man named Moses who was having a conversation with a burning bush, and the burning bush is God revealing himself to the world. And Moses asked the burning bush a question. He says, okay, who am I to say has sent me? He's supposed to go back to Egypt and tell the Israelites that they're free and to tell Pharaoh to let his slave labor force go. And he says, okay, who am I supposed to say has sent me? And here's our memory verse, Exodus 3, verse 14. And I'd love for you to read this out loud. Hear God's words coming out of your mouth. It says, God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. Now, here's another great thing about a really good teacher. A really good teacher isn't afraid of questions. Now, I think good teachers, like the best teachers, don't lie and say things like, there are no stupid questions. You ever heard that one from a teacher? Of course there are stupid questions. Like I did middle school ministry for 7 years. I heard about every stupid question you could ever imagine. So it would be a lie to say there's no stupid questions. There's all kinds of stupid questions. But a good teacher will answer questions. And our God will answer questions. So there's all kinds of things that we struggle with and we don't understand. And there may be things that God is asking us to do that run completely counterintuitive to everything in front of us. Like this guy Moses is on the run for murder from Egypt. He's no way going to go back there where he's wanted for murder. He's no way going to go back there and tell the most powerful person on the planet to let his slave labor force go. I mean, this is not what he wants to do. And now this burning bush is telling him to go. He's got some questions. He says, this is hard. This is a hard thing you're telling me to do here, burning bush. I have a question. Who is it that is sending me? And the answer is a wonderful answer. This is what God said to Moses, I am who I am. He gives himself his name. He says, my name is I am. It's the Hebrew word Yahweh. And when it was written, there were no vowels, so it was just Yah. Yeah, try it. Say Yah. It's like the breath, what creates, what causes to exist, the life force. Like, who are you, God? This is a question that is rattling around inside every human being who's ever lived. Oh, who am I and what am I here for? And how did I get here? And there's something greater than me out there. Who are you? And our God gives a wonderful answer. He says, I am who I am. I create. I cause to exist. I made you. You don't make me. You don't have authority over me. That's the thing. Like when we name things, we take authority over it. But God says, you don't have authority over me. He names himself, I am who I am. So this is a beautiful answer. This is God saying, yeah, you're going to do something that seems impossible. It seems like the last thing on earth you would ever do. But as he answers this question, this hard teaching, this hard challenge that he gives to him, he gives a very real and very powerful answer. I am has sent me to you. See, that's the thing. When we do what God is calling us to do and we live like God is calling us to live and we love with the love of God moving through us like he loves, with his love like he loves, then we also go with the authority of the I am. This is a game changer. Because I promise you, like, there are people in your life that you want to love really well. I promise you, there are some people maybe you don't want to love really well. And that may be a different struggle, and God's got some things to say to that. But let's just talk about the ones that you want to love really, really well. Do you always do a great job with that? We fail. Our human love, it falls short. We start to keep records of wrongs. We start to keep score. We start to pull back. We start to make love transactional. We start to kind of say, well, I'll love you as long as you love me, and I'll meet you halfway. And we start doing all these things, and it falls short. But God's love never fails. And this is the way he calls us to love. And it's a hard teaching. But when he gives us his love, he answers us like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to love my spouse in this situation? How am I going to love my children in this situation? How am I going to love my brother or my sister in this situation? How am I going to love my neighbor in this situation? How am I going to love my boss in this situation? Or how am I going to love my coworkers in this situation? Or how am I going to love my clients in this situation? How am I going to do this? This is a hard teaching, and yet God says, what are you going to do with my love? And he gives it to us. He gives us an answer. And then we go with his authority. This is what you're to say to whoever he's sending you to. I am has sent me to you with his love because he is for us, not against us. And so when it comes to Jesus, we do have a wonderful teacher. We're going to dig into the New Testament book of John. It's what is referred to as one of the Gospels. It tells the story of Jesus' life. If you've never read the Bible before, I would tell you to start with the book of John. It is a great place to start. If you have a Bible or get a Bible, or there's also you can get one online, the YouVersion Bible app. It's free. You can download it. Just search Gospel of John. It will take you there. Start reading. God will reveal himself to you. You'll hear some things from him and see who he is. But in the New Testament book of John, Jesus is referring to himself by some of these I am names. He's saying, okay, I am God. And one of the ways he does that is says, I am teacher, I am Lord. But we'll pick up in John chapter 13 to kind of set the stage of what is happening here. And this is the last night where Jesus is here on earth before he's arrested. He gets arrested later that night before his crucifixion. And so this is like one of his last nights on earth. He's hanging out with his friends. He's having a meal with them. And then he's going to do something so powerful and so meaningful, but something that comes like out of nowhere, it feels like. Like if you knew you were about to die and you had one day left on earth, think about what you would do. Ever done that? Like think about what you would do. Like what's on your must-do list? Jesus knows he's about to die. He knows this is coming. He knows he's going to lay down his life. And this is what is on his must do before I die list. Okay? And so as we think about this, here's the thing. Jesus came to make you clean. He came to clean the slate. All right, so where we've messed up, where we've fallen short, where we know we've done things that God didn't want us to do or neglected to do things God wanted us to do, and there is this imperfection that is a part of who we are, Jesus came to clean the slate. He came to make that clean. He came to make you clean. This is the very reason God left heaven and came to earth. Religion is an attempt for us to clean ourselves up and somehow climb our way up to God and get to God. And there are all kinds of religious activities and religious things and religious expressions and religious dogma out there. And it always falls short and always fails because we can't do that. So Jesus came to do for us what we could never do for ourselves. He came to make us clean. And this is why he was going to die. This is why he was going to lay down his life and take our sin and imperfection inside of him and take care of it once and for all. So as a precursor to this, in John chapter 13, beginning in verse 1, this is what it says. It was just before the Passover festival, and Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to his Father. And having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, wrapped a towel around his waist, and after that he poured water into a basin, and he began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. And so here is Jesus, this final night, before he's going to be arrested and mocked and beaten and put on trial and ultimately crucified, dead, and buried. And he's spending this time with his disciples, and they're sharing in this meal. And while the meal's in progress, this is what Jesus wants to do. He gets up, and he takes off his outer clothing. He wraps it around his waist. He pours water in a basin, and then he begins to wash his disciples' feet. Now, the washing of feet was a necessary thing in that day because most people either wore sandals or no shoes at all. Most of the roads and pathways were dirt, so the feet would get dirty every day. And before a meal, if you went into someone's home, so you didn't make it even dirtier in the house, there was typically a servant or someone who would take the posture of a servant and wash your feet. For whatever reason, this had not occurred. And so Jesus takes the opportunity here as he's getting ready to do for us what we could never do for ourselves. And he gets down on his knees and he washes his disciples' feet. This is very symbolic of what he came to do. He came to make us clean. He came to serve us. One time Jesus said, the Son of Man, referring to himself, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to lay his life down for others. And I want to be like Jesus. That's why when I play tennis and whoever I'm playing against, we warm up and they say, okay, Bo, do you want to serve first or you want me to serve? And I'm like, I came to be like Jesus. I came to serve, not to be served. Okay, maybe that's not exactly like Jesus. But so you can use scripture in ways that maybe aren't exactly what they intended. But Jesus came to serve. But we struggle with this. This is a real issue, I think, for most people. Like we look at life and we evaluate our lives based on how much we're served or what other people do for us. And yet what Jesus is saying and what he's doing is he's saying, no, like there's real value in serving others and taking the position of a servant and humbling yourself. Now, the reason he was able to do this is it says there in verse 3, Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power so that he had come from God and was returning to God, so he got up from the meal. I don't want you to miss it. This is the reason why. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God, so he got up. Now listen, when you know who you are and you know who is for you and you know where you stand and you know that God has you, is for you, he loves you, you have a place with him, you came from him, you were created by him in love to be loved and to love others, and that when you die, when this is all over, you're going to be with him forever, then all of a sudden there's really not much we need to prove here on this earth. These power plays and struggles and trying to be somebody. You don't have to try to be somebody when you already are somebody. And this is where Jesus is coming in. That's why the night he's going to be arrested and betrayed and everybody's going to turn their back on him and he's going to be falsely accused and he's going to be beaten and he's going to be crucified. The night that he's doing this, the last thing he does, because he knows who he is and where he's going, he serves his disciples, washes their feet. This is what Jesus did. And this is the abundant life, like a life that is full of joy and blessing and happiness and purpose that Jesus is inviting us into, to be like him. He is teacher, he is Lord. And so Jesus came to make you clean, but the only way to be with Jesus is to let him make you clean. Well, it's an interesting dynamic. The only way to be with Jesus is to let him make you clean. So he said there's going to be a little interesting exchange here between Jesus and one of his friends, one of the disciples named Peter. We keep reading the next verse. It says, he came to Simon Peter, who said to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? And Jesus replied, you do not realize now what I am doing, but later on you will understand. No, said Peter, you will never wash my feet. And Jesus answered, unless I wash you, you have no part with me. Then Lord, Simon Peter replied, not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well. I love that. And Jesus answered, those who have had a bath need only to wash their feet. Their whole body is clean, and you are clean, though not every one of you, for he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said not everyone was clean. Jesus came to make you clean, and the only way to be with Jesus is to let him make you clean. And that's not easy. We can gloss right over that and be like, hey, this is good news. It's not just good news, it's the best news. God is for you, not against you. God has made a way for you to be with him forever, but it's based on who he is, what he did, and what he promised to do. Not based on your ability or your effort. Not based on how good you can be in comparison to others. Well, this is a bit of a challenge. So when he comes to Simon Peter doesn't understand that Jesus is going to lay down his life for them. And so he's got a question here. But remember, Jesus is a good teacher, the best teacher. And there's a question here. He's like, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Like, are you serious right now? Basically, this is one of those, Jesus, you're doing it wrong moments. You ever had one of these? Jesus, you're doing it. You're not doing it right. That's not how you're supposed to do it. The disciples were expecting Jesus to be their Messiah, their Savior, but in the sense of having an earthly military kingdom kind of rule where they took back over their land and came out from under Roman oppression. And Peter and the guys are kind of like, hey, we're probably going to be going to war. And now this guy that's going to be our king, now he's washing our feet. This isn't how things are done. This is very unkingly of you, Jesus. If anything, I ought to be washing your feet right now. And that's what religion does. Religion says, God, what am I going to do for you? I'm going to do something for you, God. And yet this relationship with Jesus says, let Jesus do it for you. Whoa. That's a hard teaching. An easy teaching is, let's earn it. Let's achieve it. Let's be better than someone. Let's get after it. Let's be in control. Let's have power. Let's have authority. Let's win. Let's dominate. Let's prove to God that he's lucky to have us. That's an easy teaching. And you can go crazy trying to do all that, which is why when we start to live that way, that's why it always ends up with us being miserable and mean-spirited. Oftentimes, like hyper-religious people who are in this kind of thing of doing for God, doing for God, doing for God. You ever notice they're miserable? Because it's misery upon misery upon misery. And then it compares and you're angry at people and you're upset with people. And oh, man. It's a hard teaching. But Jesus came to make you clean. And you can't be with Jesus unless you let him make you clean. And Peter said, are you going to wash my feet too? And Jesus replies, he answers the question. You don't understand now what I'm doing, but later you're going to understand. After Jesus is crucified, dead, and buried, on the third day, he raises again and he reveals himself and he calls them to go and to love the world like he had loved them and to serve the world like he had served them, just like he's calling us today. Later you'll understand. I know you don't get it now, but later you will. And Peter said, no, you shall never wash my feet. And Jesus is like, hey, bro, this is my interpretation. Hey, bro. Let me tell you, it's like, I could almost see Jesus being like, hey, bro, unless I wash you, you have no part in me. Like, this is actually a come to Jesus moment. Peter's like, no, you'll never wash me. Bro, unless I wash you, you will have no part of me. And Peter's like, well, then my hand's in my head too. Let's just do the whole thing, which is a fantastic response. Like, yeah, like just whatever you want to do, I want in on. Whatever you're up to, I want to be a part of. I mean, that's like when we talk about baptism and experience God's love from the top of our heads to the bottom of our feet by being united with him in his death, burial, and resurrection, by standing before him in the water and saying, I accept what you've done for me. I accept that you have forgiven my sins. I accept that you will make me clean. And because of that, the old me is dead. And I'm buried with Jesus in the tomb because he took my death for me. And I'm sharing in that with him. And then we come out of the water alive and new and clean and made whole in him, having experienced his love from the top of our head to the bottom of our feet. What a beautiful and glorious celebration to be a part of. That's why we do that. Because Jesus did it and he told us to do it and he's our teacher. And Jesus came to make you clean, and you can't have, the only way to be with Jesus is to let him make you clean, but there's something that gets in the way sometimes. It can get in the way of something like baptism. It can get in the way of saying yes to Jesus. It can get in the way of letting Jesus do for us what we can't do for ourselves, only he can do. It's this thing called pride. Anybody familiar with that? Somebody just thought, no, I don't really struggle with pride. I mean, I'm just so humble. Pride is a struggle, I think, for everyone. But pride gets in the way. Pride says a few things. Pride likes to say things like, well, I mean, I'm not that dirty. I'm not really that, I mean, sure, yeah, I've messed up. I mean, yeah, I've done some things. I mean, yeah, sure, I've caused harm in this world. Yeah, I mean, I may have told a lie here or there. I mean, it's not that bad, though. I mean, I'm not that dirty. Like this relative cleanliness thing doesn't work when perfection is the standard. But pride gets in there and says, you know what, I'm probably okay. I may not be squeaky clean, but maybe I can squeak by. I'm not that dirty. Pride says, you know what, I can clean myself. I mean, yeah, sure, yeah, I've messed up and made mistakes, but I can take care of them. I mean, I can handle my own problems. I can make amends. I can fix everything. I said I was sorry. I'm not doing it again. I did that one time or maybe 10 times, but I'm not doing it now. And so, it's over. We're past it. Really? I don't know, have you ever had someone do something once that impacted you in a way and hurt you in a way that person would never even understand or comprehend? You ever had that happen to you? And you're left carrying that around with you for the rest of your life? Like a legitimate wound? Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever done that to somebody else? Oh, no. Yeah. Probably totally unaware. We can't fix it. We can't handle our sin. We can't handle the sins that have been done to us. We need Jesus to do this. Jesus came to make you clean, and the only be with him is to let you make you clean. And pride also says things like, I'm in control. All right, if I'm not that dirty, or you know what, I can fix it myself. But it's like, okay, but I'm in control here. So sometimes like people do, they like say yes to Jesus. Oh, this is good. Yes, God, I need your grace. Thank you so much. Yes, Jesus. But then we drift back into this control thing. I mean, that's where Peter was kind of here. He's like following Jesus. You're the guy, you're the Messiah. We're going to do this with you. And then Jesus wants to wash his feet and he says, no, never. That's a control thing. Maybe you have a relationship with Jesus and you've experienced his grace and salvation, but it has the control thing, has pride seeped in, and you've started to say, hey, Jesus, let me dictate the terms of this relationship with you here. Let me tell you what you're going to do and what I'm going to do. As opposed to saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, whatever you're going to do. I may not understand it. It may be a hard teaching, but whatever you're going to do. And then another form of pride, which this one may surprise you a little bit, is the pride that says, I'm too far gone. Like somehow, and this is a common thought, like my sin is so horrible that it is beyond God's ability to forgive. That too is a form of pride. I assure you, what you have done and what has been done to you, God is able to handle both. And Jesus wants to make you clean. And the only way to be with Jesus is to let him make you clean. And so what we find in Jesus is he's revealing himself in such a really sweet way. Jesus really is teacher and Lord. Our greatest teacher and our ultimate Lord. Jesus taught them by showing them what to do, and then he told them to do it as well. The next verse, verse 12, it says, when he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I've done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly, I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. I want you to hear these words of Jesus. He's saying, now that you know these things, you'll be blessed if you do them. That word blessed means happy. I think everybody wants to be happy. Sometimes we kind of drop that out there like, I just want to be happy. I just want to find a way to be happy. Jesus right here is showing us the way to be happy. He taught us and he told us. He showed us and he told us. He taught us and he commanded us. He showed his friends, this is what it looks like. This is the way to be happy. Serve one another, wash each other's feet, love each other like I love you. And when you do this, you will be happy. And so if you find yourself in the search for happiness, like you may be looking at your life and go, well, I'd be happy, and there's all these external circumstances, all these things that are happening. There's trouble at work, or there's trouble with the family, or there's trouble with the neighbors, or there's trouble with the world around us. There's trouble on social media. There's trouble with politics. If these things got fixed, then all of a sudden I could be happy. If I had a little, I got that promotion or that raise, then I could be happy. If that next Amazon purchase, when it arrives at my door, that cardboard box is going to contain my happiness. That will be the purchase that completes me. That next social media post that somebody likes and shares, that's the thing that's going to complete me and make me happy. Now, this relationship with Jesus, where he cleans us, and we're with him. And then we love like he loved. We serve like he served. He is teacher and Lord. And so what has he shown you? Think about the example that he's given you. Love personified, grace in flesh. He laid down his life for you. And now he invites us to lay down our lives for others. To serve, to share, to encourage, to bless. He's teacher and Lord. And if he is teacher and Lord, think about what he's taught you, what you've seen in him. And then what is he commanding you to do? Maybe it is that next step of faith to go all in and be baptized and experience this. And you may go, well, I don't understand it. Well, you may not understand it now, but you will later. Maybe it's about generosity, and there is a generosity inside of you that's longing for an expression to get out, and it runs contrary to how you're wired, and it's a hard teaching, but he's a good teacher. Will you say yes to him? Maybe it's serving someone who's really difficult to be around. I don't want you to miss the point that Judas, the one who would later that night betray him, Jesus washed his feet too. Is there someone that's hurt you? That you've really struggled to forgive? Here's good news. You can because of Jesus. You can't on your own, but you can. If you have his forgiveness, you can give his forgiveness. Right now we have the opportunity to remember what Jesus has done for us, what he has taught us, but then also to remember what he's told us to do. So when we share in a time of communion, that's exactly what we're doing. And so if you have bread and juice, you can eat and drink with us. If you don't, you can still participate in communion by remembering. When we take bread, we remember that Jesus broke the bread and he offered it to his friends. He said, this is my body, which is given for you. This is for you. No matter what anybody's ever told you before, Jesus is for you, and you are invited to receive and say yes to Jesus. He has done this for you. And so if you want to participate in communion right now, say, yes, Jesus. Yes, Jesus. And he took a cup. And he told them this cup is representative of a new covenant, a new promise, and a new relationship dynamic where Jesus came to make us clean. And we can be a part of him when we allow that, when we say yes to him and let him make us clean. But now not only is he teacher, but he's also Lord. And he's a good Lord, meaning that he's in control and he's in charge. The one who laid down his life only to take it back up again on the third day, he was resurrected. He is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and so we drink to the King. I would invite you right now to spend some time with your teacher, your Lord. Reflect on what he has taught you and shown you, and then listen to him about what he's calling you to do. And if he is Lord, then take your next step of faith and do what he's called you to do. I'm going to pray a blessing over you. Father, thank you. We do pray that right now you speak. Give us ears to hear and the courage to do what you're calling us to do.